So good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Jenny
Morning.
Stang. I am the Caregiver Outreach Specialist for Alabama Lifespan Respite. And I really appreciate you all coming today to talk to me about the gift of gratitude. This is probably my second caregiver education class, and I've done a couple support groups. So some of you all look familiar, some familiar faces. Some of you I haven't met yet, but I really appreciate you jumping in on this with me and learning maybe another option for making your caregiver journeys a little less stressful, a little more fulfilling, and hopefully you'll find some tips here that can help you cultivate some inner peace as you go through your daily lives. So if you weren't here in the very beginning, I just ask that you all please put your email address in the chat so that I can take attendance and send you all your post tests if you're willing to take that. Just a little housekeeping there in the beginning here. And I'll go ahead and get started by sharing my screen if everyone's ready. Let's see here, if I can pull up my PowerPoints. There we go. All right, let me know in the chat if you cannot see what I'm sharing. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the gift of gratitude today. Gratitude is kind of one of those buzzwords that you hear floating around, especially in like the positive psychology arena. And so hopefully my goal today is to kind of break down, what does gratitude look like, and as far as a neurobiological perspective, how does it help us, and what does gratitude practice actually mean? So I'll go through the presentation, and if anyone has any questions or comments along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. I do plan on having a few moments at the end for discussion and insights and all that. So if you have any questions, you need to jot it down in the chat, that's great. I'll address them at the end, okay? So first things first, we are going to talk about our human negativity bias. So a negativity bias is something we all experience. The human brain has a natural tendency to give weight to and remember negative experiences or interactions more than positive ones. They stand out more. So psychologists refer to this as a negativity bias. So why do we have a negativity bias? It's actually a survival mechanism that we've adapted over the millennia or over the generations as human beings have, tried to survive on this planet. So one illustration I heard that really brought the point home to me, if you can consider our ancestors living out in the savannah, living out in the wilderness, they had to be very cautious about predators. Anything could really scoop them up at any moment and ruin their day in a really major way. And so the illustration I heard was, if you see something off in the distance in the grass, it could be a giant rock or it could be a lion. Well, if your brain says, oh, it's just a rock and you ignore it and it happens to be a lion, guess what? You're going to be lunch. And if you think it's a lion, but it's really a rock, well, you're probably going to be safe, right? So our brain has been wired to see danger first as a way to survive. Because if you happen to mistake that lion for a rock one time, that'll be the last time, right? So our brains are wired to see perceived threats in our environment as a way to protect us from danger. Well, I don't know where most of you all live, but everyone I know doesn't have to be concerned about being prey to a wild animal in their lifetime. So it's not as useful in that regard as it was to our ancestors. Now we think of threats as bills that are piling up, or interpersonal relationships, or maybe a job that's sucking our soul. These are all our modern day threats, right? And so our negativity bias can really be in hyperdrive a lot of times. And so we might have a pile of good just sitting there behind us, like in that illustration, but we're going to focus on the one bad thing that's causing us stress, that's causing us frustration. And those things could very well be overwhelming and very, consuming in our space. But our brain has a tendency to focus and remember those negative experiences before the good. And so what a gratitude practice does is it actually combats our natural negativity bias to where we're teaching our brain to focus on the good rather than the bad, or the positive rather than the negative. So it takes practice. That's why it's called a gratitude practice. It doesn't happen overnight. So what is a gratitude practice? Well, let's define gratitude first. Psychologists say that gratitude is a positive emotional response that we perceive when giving or receiving a benefit from someone. So it's reciprocal. It's whether we're giving something or we're receiving something. Gratitude can be perceived by you or the person that is receiving the gratitude from you. So thanking others, thanking ourselves, Mother Nature, or the Almighty, whoever you want to express that gratitude in any form, it can enlighten the mind and make us feel happier. And we'll go into why that works, the science behind that here in the next couple slides. An interesting thing about gratitude, it's both a fleeting emotion and a stable trait. So you can be a grateful person where, you've probably met those people where it just seems like they're always looking at the silver lining. They're always focusing on the positive. That would be a stable trait in that person. Or you can experience a thankful moment. You received a gift. Maybe you barely missed a car in the, in the merge lane that could have been a wreck. And so you're thankful in that moment that didn't go bad for you. But gratitude is both a moment experience, and it can also be a trait that you cultivate. And that's what a gratitude practice is. It's cultivating the emotion of gratitude in our daily life. And that leads to a stable trait of gratitude. So you can, over time with this practice, become just a personality trait that you have, is being grateful. Just like if you go to the gym and you work out, your arms and your legs and your chest, the first day it's not going to really do much to you, but over time the consistency will build your body up stronger. And gratitude is the same way. It'll help build your brain stronger. It'll help build more resilience. It'll help you to combat stressful situations a lot more easily than you currently are. And so that's why it's important to be intentional when we do our gratitude practice and try to do it every day, at minimum, I would say every other day. So gratitude is an antidote to negative emotions like envy, hostility, worry, and irritation. Research recommends that gratitude to be used both as a pathway to experiencing more positive emotions, as well as a motivator for self-improvement. So what that means is, like I said before, gratitude can change the way that we experience our own emotions. And it also, once we start experiencing gratitude on a consistent way, our brain starts to crave that. And so it's a motivator for more self-improvement. And again, we'll talk about the neurotransmitters in the next slide, and that's kind of what helps that motivation for self-improvement. So some of the benefits of gratitude, according to research, it will improve your physical health. It can reduce aggression. There's sleep improvement, more social connections. It can improve your psychological health, enhance your self-esteem, increase your empathy, which is amazing for caregivers. And it improves mental strength, that resilience that we're looking for, where we're not so quick to anger or quick to react. Practicing gratitude can actually make our responses a lot more beneficial for us and everyone around us. So if you've been through any of my classes so far, I love to talk about how our behaviors affect our brains, because I feel like that is really a key component to making these practices a daily thing that you just do. It just comes natural to you. Understanding how it affects your brain, at least for me, is a great motivator to continue these practices. So in neuroscience research, there's a thing called Hebb's law, and it says neurons that fire together wire together. This is often used when we're referring to things like early childhood or adolescent trauma, just the way we learn behaviors, because if you have like I said, neurons that fire together wire together. And so gratitude is one of those things that we can intentionally choose to wire together with our daily life. So the more you practice gratitude, the more you strengthen the brain's neural circuits for gratitude, making it easier to focus on the feeling of gratitude. So the more you do, the more you get. When you start to focus on things you already have in your life that are good, your brain becomes better at discovering similar things. So just try to keep that in mind, that you are literally trying to retrain your brain from seeing the negative first to seeing the positive first. And over time, it becomes a lot more easy to do. So your brain on gratitude. It's pretty fascinating, at least if you're a brain nerd like I am. But research has found that when we express gratitude, the brain releases a surge of dopamine. I'm sure you guys have heard about dopamine before, but as a review or maybe as new information, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that we have in our brains, and it plays an important role in many vital functions, including pleasure, reward, motivation, attention, and even bodily movements. The surge of dopamine gives you a natural high, creating good feelings that motivate you to repeat specific behaviors, including expressing gratitude even more. So you probably have heard that the term doom scrolling, if you're ever on social media and you're just kind of like mindlessly scrolling, that actually does release dopamine in our brains. It gives us a reward sensation. And so we are doing habits to increase our dopamine production all the time. Some of those habits are really, really healthy and really, really helpful, like gratitude. And some of them are not. So we can probably think of all sorts of unhealthy habits that we can develop in that search for dopamine. So dopamine definitely has an effect on our sense of well-being. And creating this environment to invite that dopamine into your space in a healthy way is going to serve you well in the future. Another neurotransmitter that we get is serotonin. So gratitude has also been associated with increased serotonin production. Serotonin is often called the happiness chemical because it contributes to feelings of well-being, stabilizes our mood, and helps us feel more relaxed. So I'm just waiting for the day that they bottle serotonin and put it on the shelves at my local CVS, because that sounds like something I definitely need more of. And gratitude will actually increase the serotonin production. And lastly, we have our prefrontal cortex surge. So the prefrontal cortex is an area of the brain that's linked to learning and making decisions. So there's actually a study where they hooked up a bunch of people to brain scans. And when they were expressing gratitude, they were seeing what was going on in the brain. And so what they found was a surge of activity in that prefrontal cortex when you express gratitude. But the interesting thing is, it's different when you're just feeling grateful, but you don't express it. So this is what's fascinating. You can feel grateful all day long, but if you don't share it with somebody, you're not going to get the full impact of that gratitude. And maybe sharing it with somebody is the wrong term, because in the study, they also found that people who just wrote down what they were grateful for, either in a letter or in a journal, they got that same surge of activity. So you can feel gratitude and keep it to yourself, and it will benefit you, sure, but expressing it is the key. So telling somebody how you feel, journaling about it, that's what's really going to create those neural pathways. That's really going to do that fire and wire together that we're looking for with gratitude. Let's see. So I'm going to take a minute here, and I want to talk to you about gratitude versus toxic positivity. So there's a lot of talk in the positive psychology world about toxic behaviors. And you think, how can positivity be toxic? Well, my little blurb here says, positive thinking is when you try to will good feelings or experiences into existence by focusing exclusively on the outcome that you want. So if we use this technique to avoid or deny our genuine experiences, we run the risk of invalidating our feelings. And if any of you have been in my classes so far, you can attest to my absolute I think it's absolutely necessary that we validate our feelings, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't want to hold those negative feelings in. We don't want to downplay how we feel. We definitely want to validate ourselves. And that's key in creating gratitude versus toxic positivity. So toxic positivity is when we wish we were feeling something that we aren't. And so we admonish ourselves for feeling differently by saying something like, think positive. Have you ever had a moment where you've been expressing maybe a negative feeling or a bad feeling, you're sad, you're angry, you're lonely, and someone says, well, somebody out there's got it worse than you, right? Think positive, it could be worse. Well, that could very well be true, but that really doesn't validate what you're feeling at this moment, okay? So you can definitely slap on a smile and act like things don't bother you and just stay positive, quote unquote. But that's really not going to give you the benefits that you were really hoping to get. Okay, we can slap on a Band-Aid on anything, but if we don't clean it out, if we don't let it, heal properly, we're going to have a big problem. And the same is true with our emotions. We don't ever want to stuff down bad emotions and cover them up with a smile. That's not going to work. That's going to create a buildup, and it's going to cause resentment, and it's going to create all sorts of problems physically, emotionally, and spiritually for you. So when you're expressing gratitude, it's really, really important that we do not deny any underlying feeling that we have that could become a barrier to that. So in order to experience something positive, such as gratitude, we must first be real with ourselves about what we're feeling, whether it be grief, anger, envy, shame. The only way out is through. So the first step in cultivating gratitude is to validate what we're actually feeling, no matter how painful or quote unquote wrong it seems. When we find a kernel of truth behind what we're feeling, we move toward understanding and acceptance. And that's accepting ourselves, accepting how we feel, accepting our situation. In order to shift toward gratitude, you must surrender. The only way we can give rise to the reward of gratitude. That's the only time. So I hope that makes sense to you all, because sometimes people will just ignore things that are maybe negative in their lives in an effort to cultivate a positive or grateful mindset. And while the intention is well there, it's a good intention, it can actually cause more problems. So we want to make sure that when we're expressing gratitude, what we're first doing is honoring our feelings, validating our feelings. So you can say, I'm angry that I am not able to have the freedom I used to have. You can say that and still be a grateful person. You can say, I'm really upset, I'm really sad that my loved one is suffering, but I'm grateful that I have the space to provide care for them, right? So accepting that feeling first is the only way that we'll be able to release and accept the benefits of gratitude. So got this little picture off the internet. I've heard this quote before: your mind is the garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. So how do we find gratitude in our everyday life? It's easy to say, like on Thanksgiving time, well, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my job, and those things are really important to be grateful for. But cultivating a gratitude practice oftentimes causes you to go a little deeper. So tuning into the small everyday details of your life and noticing the good things you might sometimes take for granted. So here's some ideas you can maybe try. Each day, think of 3 things that you're grateful for. Okay, that could be family, that could be your home, that could be your job, that could be, just your basic things that most people are thankful for. But maybe even go a little deeper. You can be grateful for nature. You can be grateful for the people in your community. You can be grateful for your shelter or creature comforts, like a good meal or a warm bed. It's amazing what you notice when you focus on feeling grateful. I started this in the morning where I'm laying in bed after my alarm goes off for maybe the 15th time and just really feeling grateful that I have a warm, dry bed to sleep in. And even expanding that to how did that bed even get to my space? So I'm grateful for the designers of the bed. I'm grateful for the manufacturers of the bed. I'm grateful for the warehouse workers who distributed that bed to all the many locations of the store that I went and bought it. I'm grateful for the people out in the fields who grew and harvested all the natural fibers and materials needed to make that bed. So if you can see, you can really get into something that seems surface at first, but if you really start digging down, you realize there's this whole network of community and people that are allowing that into your space, and feeling grateful for those individuals, for me, has been very helpful in cultivating gratitude practice. Next, you can start a gratitude journal. Making a commitment to writing down good things each day makes it more likely that you'll notice the good things as they happen. Now, I will be honest with you, I will promote journaling until I'm blue in the face, but I am rotten at doing this myself. So if you're like me and you don't particularly enjoy keeping a journal, don't shame yourself. It's just a suggestion. Some people really, really enjoy it and they can stay on top of it and it really benefits them. But I do acknowledge that journaling is not for everybody, and that's okay. But again, you're creating this space where you can express your gratitude, even if it's just in a journal that only you read. And if you remember, that is how we really get that benefit of gratitude, is not keeping it to ourselves all the time, but expressing it as much as we can. Next, you can practice gratitude rituals. Some people say grace before a meal. Pausing in gratitude before eating doesn't have to be a religious thing. It can be a simple habit that helps you notice and appreciate the blessings of food on the table. Again, I kind of go through this whole network in my brain of, how did these strawberries get in my refrigerator? Because I do not have a green thumb. I've tried a vegetable garden. It didn't work very well. I don't have an orchard in my backyard, but I went to the Kroger yesterday and I was able to get fresh fruit. I was able to get fresh vegetables. I was able to get fresh proteins. And that's all without me having a garden, an orchard, or a butcher house, right? And so I can think about all of the people in that line, in that chain that ended with me being able to go to the grocery store and buy what I needed. I can practice gratitude at the grocery store just because I have the availability to pick out things that I enjoy eating that are good for me, that I didn't have to grow myself. I didn't have to harvest myself. And so I can express gratitude just to the general culture that allows me to have these resources available very conveniently. So when you're experiencing gratitude, here are some ways to really let it kind of marinate down into your soul, right? So you can savor that feeling when gratitude comes up. There are moments when you're naturally right, and then there are moments when you're naturally right then and there feel filled with gratitude, right? So say you experience something amazing like the birth of a grandchild, right? Oh, that's amazing. Obviously, I feel grateful for that. Or somebody gives you a really, really good gift, or somebody comes over and they help you paint your house. Those are moments that you can be really filled with gratitude. And you can say to yourself, this is amazing, or how great is this, right? So when you are in those moments, try to take a pause and just really breathe into that feeling of gratitude. Let your brain know this is good, this is what you want, right? And really solidify those feelings. Don't let them be passing or fleeting or not fully experienced. Taking a pause, noticing and absorbing that feeling of true, genuine gratitude. Let it sink in, soak it up, savor your blessings in the moment that they happen. I'm not saying you have to drop everything and close your eyes and go into like a yoga pose and feel the spirit of gratitude will wash over you. I mean, that's great if you can, but I definitely wasn't doing that at the grocery store yesterday, but I was still pausing and savoring that feeling of gratitude. And didn't have to make a big scene. It was just all in my heart and my mind. And so that's kind of what that's trying to tell you. And then express your gratitude. Expressing gratitude is more than a courtesy. It's more than manners or being polite. It's about showing your heartfelt appreciation. So when you thank someone, you're also practicing the first two gratitude skills. You've noticed something good and you genuinely appreciate it. So again, expressing that gratitude is really going to give your brain that good juice that it really wants, right? So your brain, it's really interesting. It actually craves that reciprocation of gratitude, giving and receiving. And I think it's because we are community, we're communal species. And whenever we can engage in an activity or a behavior that strengthens our communities, makes us feel good about being in community, makes us feel happy and thankful that we're around other human beings to help life kind of be a little easier. Your brain craves that. So the more you give it, the more it wants. And that's how we cultivate that trait of gratitude. So what are the key takeaways? It's kind of a quick presentation, but I know we all have minimal time and I want to leave room for questions and insights. So if you didn't remember anything I told you today, here's the key takeaways I hope that you do bring home with you. Gratitude flips our natural negativity bias by retraining our brain to see the good things first. Avoid toxic positivity by validating emotional barriers to gratitude. Again, we're not covering things up with a smile. We're acknowledging, validating, pushing through, and accepting gratitude. Regularly expressing and savoring the emotion of gratitude cultivates the long-standing trait. And that's the goal, right? We want to get to a point where our gratitude muscles are strong and healthy, and they can help us carry into other areas of our life, breeding resilience and less reactive behaviors. So here's a quote from Cicero: "Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others." I would really encourage you to kind of think on that, meditate on that. And what does that mean to you? What other virtues in your life are you cultivating that stems from gratitude? How can starting with gratitude spread out into other virtues that we wish to acquire? It's just a little thing that you can think about until we meet again. So that's the end of my PowerPoint. Here's my contact information, which again, it's spread throughout all of my education. So if you don't have this jotted down, I'm sure it'll come up in a later presentation, or you can just, look it up on the internet if you need to contact me. If you have any questions, or if you just want to talk, I'm here for you. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing. And I'll look in the chat to see if anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so Crystal Barrett says Five Below has some very affordable positive affirmation books, as well as prompt journaling books, logs for those that may be struggling with finding positives. Thank you, Crystal. Yes, that's a great tip, because I know sometimes people think, okay, well, I hear I'm supposed to do this, but I don't know how to start. And having those prompts for beginners especially can be an amazing resource. So if anyone would like to unmute or comment or anything like that, feel free to do so. If you have any questions or any insights, I'd love to hear them.
I struggle with positivity a lot. I've actually been referred to as Negative Nancy more than I'd like to admit. So the past 2 years, I've been in and out of therapy trying to find the right fit. And that's why I mentioned the Five Below. I've learned that they even have little positive affirmation, little card decks. So I've learned, like, leaving the book, or, even the little signs that you can use, the little decorative signs or whatever, that have the little positive affirmations, like leaving those around the house. Kind of, when I'm stressed out and I'm upset and I can't find a positive, just seeing those things will make me actually just stop for a moment and think. And a lot of the times thinking that there are people that do have it so much worse is what can help me, lead me to find a positive.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, Crystal. I am a huge advocate for daily reminders and sticky notes, or whatever it takes to get you to reroute your thought process a little bit. Because we do naturally have that negativity bias. So if you are, maybe you feel like you're just naturally a negative person, we all are, really. Of course, our upbringing and our situations in life, can exacerbate that or shrink that or what have you. But most of us do just automatically see the negative first. It's a survival mechanism we have, and noticing the negative is a lot different than staying in that negative, right? To burying ourselves in that negative. I notice negative things all the time, but how much time am I giving it in my brain space is really what you practice. So it's, yeah, you don't have to dwell on those negative things. You can see them, but don't beat yourself up for having that negativity bias, because we all do. So thank you for sharing, Crystal. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share, or questions, insights? Is anyone currently participating in a gratitude practice, or has ever tried it before?
I'm glad you mentioned about the childhood and the upbringing, because that does heavily influence, like, your mindset. Like, I had a very abusive upbringing in childhood, and so I've learned over the years that a lot of my responses are because I'm in fight or flight mode. that like the rational reasoning part has been damaged. And so I'm trying to undo a lot of I guess the programming from my upbringing, and having like the positive affirmations. Like, I'm terrible at journaling. The last 3 therapists were like, journal, journal, you need an outlet, you know. And so I found those booklets at Five Below, because I do get in the mindset where I'm like, everything sucks, and I just, you know, it is what it is. That's my favorite phrase. But like, there's like prompts like, tell me one good thing that happened today, or um, tell me like something good about yourself, or just, you know, things like that. And it does make it easier, because without the prompts, I'm like, I can't think of anything. I'm here.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's relatable to so many of us. You know, we kind of get in that trap, that spiral of, you know, if, you know, like we said before, what fires together wires together. So if, you know, you're constantly in that habit of internalizing negative experiences, it can definitely be difficult to get out of that habit. And that's why, you know, starting a gratitude practice in the beginning might be discouraging, because you're like, oh, I'm just, you know, can't find anything to be grateful for, or it's not working, I'm still mad at everything, or I'm still upset. But it's just like, if you go to the gym, you know, 1 day a month, you're not going to get the gains, right? So you just have to give yourself that gift and say, I am going to practice some self-care today, and I'm going to focus on at least one good thing, because sometimes that's all you get. Sometimes it's just, I have air in my lungs, right? And that's all you can muster. And that's okay. It's better than not trying at all. So I really appreciate your vulnerability, Crystal, with sharing with us your journey so far. And I'm really excited to see where you end up here in the near future, I'm sure. Anybody else want to share?
Well, I don't know if this is Vanessa. I don't know if it's a ritual, but I've learned over the years that the way I start my day is the way my day ends.
Yes.
I refuse to let any situation the night before or whatever I have facing me on my job steal my moment of solitude, where I say to myself every morning, this is my day. I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to start it with a smile, and I'm going to end it with a smile. And it's so funny, because on my job, people always say, you come in with a great smile. I have to take 30 seconds in my car to listen to something gospel, or listen to a podcast. I have to get my mind set for my day. And I don't let anybody deter that. If I see that I'm running across someone that is negative, let me move quickly from that individually, because I have things I need to do within my 8 hours, and I have to focus. So I can say that this works for me pretty much 5 days a week when I have to come to work, because you take control of how your day starts, regardless of the drama, regardless of the caretaking responsibility that we have. I have a son, but once I get him situated and everything, and I have to put my mindset on me and my focus on me to get through the day. And I don't let anybody steal that.
What an amazing example. So can I ask you, Vanessa, how long did you have to practice this intentionally before you felt like it was really benefiting you? Was it immediate, or did it take you a while?
No, because the devil is very busy. The devil is very, very, very busy. And situations would come up either in my household or on my job. And I found myself having to go to the ladies' room, just pray real quick, or I'm lucky enough to be in my office where I can pull up TD Jakes. I have to get my mind refocused that I have a goal, and it's my inner peace. It's my inner peace. You can have anything, you can have everything in the world, but if you don't have inner peace, it's no good.
Yeah.
And I would say I've been through a lot. Who haven't? It's called life. But I've been doing this for over 7 years. Over 7 years, and I've been through a divorce. I've lost siblings. I've lost parents. It's life.
Mm-hmm.
It's life. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible for my peace.
Mm-hmm.
I can't expect anybody else to give it to me. So you have to deep down in your soul and figure out what are the tools you're going to need to give you that peace.
Yes. Yes.
So it was just something that I needed to do for myself. And I think it's kind of contagious because I have coworkers come in my office and they say, I just need 5 minutes. Can I just have 5 minutes? I said, go right ahead. You have to reshift. You have to refocus.
Yeah.
It works for me.
What a beautiful gift you're giving yourself and the people you're caring for, right? Because you're not inundated with that negativity. Have you heard the phrase, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive?
Don't you know it, girlfriend? So I hope that helps someone.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it does. And it's great to see somebody who has that lived experience of this is what I've chosen to do and this is how it's benefited me. And I know you couldn't imagine a day without that ritual, could you? Right?
No. No.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'll share something. I am not a journalist, but I do notes, and I'll do post-it notes all over my mirror, on my car, on my dashboard, and play on my computer and everything and things like that. And as Crystal was saying, you have a verse or you have some unnecessary saying or something, and just put it there and keep repeating it and keep repeating it. So one thing I do is try, Vanessa, you were talking about, try to command your morning and you get up and pray and meditate, but being a caregiver, that's not always necessary because there's something that's going to pop up. But I find my little notes on the mirror help encourage me, and on my dashboard in the car, write them down.
Yeah, put them where you can see them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my grandmother would have sticky notes, on the coffee pot, on the creamer in the refrigerator, on the toilet paper in the bathroom. So she just, wherever she was going to be, she saw what she needed to see. And that worked for her. That worked for her. We can all come up with little tricks to kind of keep ourselves on track. And for me, I know it's easier for me to keep a habit when I acknowledge the benefits to me, right? If I can see how it affects the brain, if I can see how, it affects my mood and my spirit, it's a lot easier for me to keep on track. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that you just really don't understand how much it impacts you in a positive way until you just make up your mind to do it. So I hope that this presentation has encouraged every one of you to either continue your practice that you're already doing or to create one that works for you. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's only wrong if it's too hard for you to keep track of. Does anybody else
Also,
want
if
to
you
share?
have devotional books, like at my church, we have a devotional book. It's one for women every 3 months, and then there's one for men. And those are very, very helpful. I find it's like we realize that we're never alone, that there's always somebody else that's going through something worse. So when you read those devotionals and then there's like scriptures or there's a poem or something that just kind of helps, that also helps me as well. It's like I'm not alone. Someone else has gone through this before and they made it through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the human animal is remarkably resilient. There's so much that we can achieve, and sounds, pretty cliche, but it's true. It's been proven by science. There's so much we can achieve if we just set our minds to the end goal.
Yeah.
And one gratitude practice I learned recently was they call it the mountaintop practice, where if you can't really necessarily see something in your immediate space that you're grateful for, imagine yourself on top of a mountain looking back at the journey that you just went through. So I'm sure there's so many times most of us can think of something in the past that we have overcome, that we did get through, that we did prove to ourselves that we were resilient. that we've grown from, we've grown through, and maybe even just like a reflective gratitude practice. If you can't find anything in the present moment, you can look back and say, I've grown in this area, or I'm not like I was 5 years ago, I'm better than I was yesterday, you know, whatever it takes, to just really kind of look back and say, I'm on this mountain for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good.
And one thing I do want to leave you all with, it seems like we're winding down here, to really be mindful not to fall in that pitfall of that toxic positive thinking. It's very common for us to want to shrug off bad feelings or negative emotions because like, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to be a negative person. But really the only way out is through. So begin with that validation, begin with that self-compassion, and that understanding that yes, this is hard, but I'm strong enough to get through it. Okay. Anything else before we wrap up? I don't want to rush anybody or put anybody on the spot, but I definitely want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to share or ask questions if they have them. Well, thank you so much again for joining me today. I really appreciate your trust that you have in me to share with you good and useful information. Again, if you have any suggestions or comments about what you would like to learn about, anything that maybe you're struggling on, please reach out to me either through email or phone, and I would love to create something that will be helpful and meet you where you are today. And then one more time, if you haven't signed into the chat, please do so with your email address. And I guess we'll see you all at the next one. If you're interested, my next education class will be on mindfulness. Some of you who are in my support group, it'll probably a repeat of some information because that was the first one that I ever did with you all. I'm going to expand on it a little bit more. And then after that, we're going to do relieving caregiver stress through art. So we won't do an art project, but I will talk to you again. My favorite topic is the brain and why art is so powerful for our stress reduction and just mental resilience. So if you're interested in those, please go to alabamarespite.org, sign up under the Caregiver Events tab. It's free to attend, and I would love to see you all there. So have a good rest of your week. Have an amazingly restful weekend if you can manage it. And I'll see you all soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.